is mine. The game 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 is mine.
Right now, though, I got the Coalition to Stop Inhumanity at the Cuyahoga County Jail right here. What's up, y'all? Really great show. I'm gonna let these wonderful people address you and let you all know their names and what group they're with, because it's made up. The coalition is made up of several different people in groups. So if you can let us know who you are and who you're affiliated with.
Right. Yeah, we have many different groups joining this coalition. I think the last time I counted, we're at like 20. And
Whoa!
we're constantly building right now. So my name is Molly Nagin. I am an organizer in Cleveland. Grew up in the city with the Tamir Rice Foundation and the Communist Party USA of the Ohio District.
Okay.
My name is David Patterson. I'm the Vice President of the Carl Stokes Brigade.
Hi, and I am Marva Patterson. I am a Christian community activist as well as a member of the Carl Stokes Brigade.
And I'm Kareem Henton. I'm one of the co-founders here with Black Lives Matter Cleveland. I'm also a part of the coalition.
Yeah. Now that's dope. Now, tell me, how long have the coalition been together?
I can answer that. So we started around December 11th. Our first action was December 11th.
This past December?
That's right.
So what did it all stem from? It had to be something that happened to galvanize such, great people like yourselves to where 20 groups thus far will come together to fight such a thing. Was there anything in particular that just galvanized you all?
Well, I think there were a number of issues that galvanized us, but one of the main ones was, I think, the deaths in the county jail. We've had 7 or 8 deaths in the county jail. As a matter of fact, I think
seven or eight
deaths, and I think there's since June, right? And
since June.
Since June, and then I think there's a 9th person that's in critical condition right now that hasn't died, but is very close to death. So I think that was one of the components that got us started on this. The other thing being that there are too many people in jail right now that couldn't afford bond. And because they can't afford bond, they sit in that jail for months, sometimes up to a year, before they're even convicted of a crime. So in today's methodology of what they do, I mean, what you have to understand is we've got people sitting there that have not been convicted of a crime. So it's almost like it used to be innocent until proven guilty. Now it's more like innocent until proven guilty, or if you can't afford bail, you're automatically looked at as guilty.
Do you all feel like it's all money motivated?
Well, that's a possibility, but what we're looking at, most people say a probability, but what we're looking at is it's a system that's geared around people who are impoverished. Because if you can't afford bail and you're sitting there and you're not able to get out, so we're saying, it's time for us to start taking notice of what's going on in the jail system.
So I'll go ahead and, state the obvious and be the devil. I'm going to keep it real. Much of it, if not most of it, is money motivated because the bail lobby and the prison industrial complex, those are some pretty powerful lobbies. So therefore, they definitely want to see the system remain as is. It helps one to understand how powerful that lobby is when you have politicians who are supposed to represent the community that do not have a sense of urgency when it comes to incarceration. So, just think about some of these stats that 75% of the people that languish in our jails are there because they just can't afford bond.
So I'm driving. I got a couple tickets, warrant tickets. I ain't got the money. $1,000 to get out. I can't get out. I lose everything.
Oh, absolutely. And they're not, and that's some of what, how the system is really failing us is because they don't give a damn if you have a job. So here it is, you have a job, but now you're going to sit in jail and you're going to lose that job. So how the heck are you supposed to pay? So like I said, I mean, they have no sense of urgency. You could look at half of the people that commit suicide in jail commit suicide within that first week. So you would think that there would be a reluctance to place so many people immediately in jail, but there is none.
You're absolutely right. There isn't. And it's not just the issue of them losing their jobs. These people also lose their houses or their apartments. And some of them even have their children taken away. So you have to understand what this means. This is an attack, as usual, on African American people. And we have to understand that this is our job. We are our brother's keeper, whether we want to accept that reality or not. We are. Because here's the deal. Everybody wants you to fight for them when they're in trouble. But you have to come out and fight for people when they're in trouble so that we can do this thing back and forth.
Right.
I mean, it's like that old saying that, you know, they came for the Christians, and I wasn't a Christian, so they didn't bother me, and then they came for the Unionists, and I wasn't a Unionist, and they didn't bother me. Then they came for me, and nobody fought for me. That's because you didn't fight for them. We've got to fight for each other.
Well, let me ask you all a question. Armand Buddhist is the head of the county. He's the Cuyahoga County. He's at the Cuyahoga County executive. How much blame does the coalition set at his feet?
Sure. So there's a lot of targets in our.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who turn the cheek. There's a lot of people who had power long ago, before people were imprisoned in the first place or died in prison. So our list of targets, let me just read this here.
Okay, listen up so you can get your act together. Consider this as a warning.
Cuyahoga County Council, all members of the council have jurisdiction over the jail. Armand Budish, which you mentioned already. The sheriff, Clifford Pinkney. The acting jail director, George Taylor. Now that's a story that we'd like to get into at some point. He's the current jail director. The acting warden, the public safety chief, Brandy Carney. County common pleas judges, John Russo is the top of the judges, and all county municipal judges. And so on the judges piece, the judges have a decision. They have power to set the bail. They have the power to say this person goes on bail for $100, or this person goes on bail for $10 million. You know, they can set it, and there's some limits on that. I'm sure my comrades here can speak to that better than I can. But the point is that the judges have capacity to reduce the amount of bail. Yeah, so we have a hit list. We have demands. We have various demands, and one of them is addressing bail. And so where we were leaving off of was the judges. So the judges have a lot of control over the cost of bail. And so they have the power to reduce that bail. Right now, one of our actions is to have inmates who are currently incarcerated request reduction in their bail. But so the thing is that judges are reluctant, and all of these elected officials are reluctant to meet these demands, which are not new. They're not.
Why do you think that is?
And that is because we have a system that relies on racism. We have
somebody here to tell it like it is.
We have a voting process that relies on playing to the racist ideas and fears of the white people, and that is no different in Cleveland or this county. And so we white people may be afraid that the Black people will be free from prison because they have this racist idea of Black people being aggressive or criminals. There's a lot of, so if anybody else wants to speak to that, but that is a
Molly,
very
you brought up an
foundational.
interesting point, because to even want to honestly tackle those questions of inhumanity at the county jail, you got to tackle those own personal issues that you have before you get to work.
Yeah, and a lot of these judges are, people who have been played into these ideas, just like a lot of us, right? But by pressuring them to do what is humane, what is constitutional. I don't know if you all saw that article in the, it says, oh, the constitutional rights of the inmates have been restored. Well, why were they ever violated? Why is that news? And so the judges and the people in the prison directors, they know what's right. They have been told for countless times, but they continue to not follow through because of these ideas that proliferate throughout our culture.
Now I'm being told that the coalition is even planning to hold forums and teaching people about bail. Can you speak to those efforts?
So we're in the process now of presenting a teaching. So we're just working out the nuts and bolts of that. So hopefully we'll be able to come back on and we'll be able to give the audience an actual.
Well, sure, because you feel like that's real important that a lot of people don't even know about bail. Can you give them like a brief synopsis? Because you were saying something about how a lot of people don't even know that you can ask for a reduction in bail.
Yeah, that's true. And that's what we're seeing now. Individuals and attorneys are not requesting a reduction in bail. So we're saying if the attorney isn't asking or requesting that and the person who's incarcerated doesn't know, to even inform their attorney this is what they want.
And don't leave out the judges, because the judges have an ethics responsibility to make sure that a person's rights are not being violated, that they're getting the best defense possible. And so one of the things that a judge can and should insist upon is that the defense attorney actually advocate for the defendant. And the way to do that, or one of the ways, is to actually say, hey, can the defendant actually get a reduction in bail? And some of the biggest reasons behind that is that if a person is not in jail and they're going back and forth to court, that person is less likely to receive a jail sentence, and they're less likely to be found guilty.
They ain't fighting on the inside.
They're not fighting from the inside, so they're not showing up to the courtroom in jailhouse orange. They're not coming in cuffs. They're not coming shackled. So that impression,
they're not advertising guilt, basically.
Right. So so that helps. But the other thing is the pressure. You have to understand, when you're sitting behind bars, you're thinking about your family. You're thinking about your job, losing your home, all of those things. So when you have a prosecutor, or you have a judge or a defense attorney who's leaning on you to actually take a plea bargain, all you want, and they're saying, and they come to you and they say, all you got to do is take this plea and you can be back out. You can be free. Chances are you're going to take that regardless of guilt.
Which is exactly what I was getting ready to get into. That's the idea behind not letting people out on bail. You force pleas. And 95% of the convictions are pleas. Believe that. Most people don't go to court. If we said we wouldn't take a plea,
said 95% of the convictions are pleas.
95%.
Whoa, let that sink in.
And what we do know because of that is that if we decided we wouldn't take pleas, and we all decided, nope, I want to go to trial and I want a jury trial, we would crash the system.
Yeah, because it'd be so much work to do on the books. The judges couldn't go home. Now you all have a list of demands, and we were speaking candidly before we all came on and you're saying you really want a seat at the table with the people that can make decisions. So can you speak to those demands and then that greater demand?
Yeah.
Right there?
So
We are the people, baby.
So I'll let some of my peers to actually speak to some of the demands, but particularly what I'm focused on in regards to the bail reform aspect is that right now what we're centering on are services that are going to be available within each courtroom. So understand, this is just for example, if someone is in there, perhaps they received an assault charge that resulted during the arrest, but the original charge that initiated the contact between them and law enforcement was actually trespassing. Well, when they're in the courtrooms and they're able to and there's someone there to be able to do an assessment, that assessment will bring to light that this person is homeless. Now we're understanding why they're trespassing. Now, when you understand that.
Hold on, wait a minute. So you telling me, saying to me now, because what I'm trying to understand is you saying it's okay to
What I'm saying is that this provides insight as to how it happened. So if you understand how it happened, then you'll understand, well, how can we prevent it? Because right now, this system is set up to deal with symptoms, but not causes.
Well, Kareem, some people probably say to you, like, that's after bail. You know what I'm saying? Like they say after chest, that's after bail. You done already committed a crime.
But if you go to jail and you sit in jail, you're helping to create a criminal, a person that is gonna
Explain that because that sounds live, and
That's so important.
I
It is
need
so
to
important.
let that soak in.
Mhm.
Can you tell me what you
think about it like this: jails and prisons are gladiator schools. So now, if you send them and let them sit in that school, they're gonna learn because you gotta, you know what I mean? It's like you're gonna eat or be eaten. And so now, now they get back, released back onto the streets, and what happens? They, for one, less likely to be employed. Two, many of them are now less scared of being incarcerated because they survived it once already. They're no longer sensitized, they're desensitized to the fear of being incarcerated.
I give you that.
And then three, like I said, they're under the tutelage
Career criminal.
Exactly. So what happens?
Can I add a fourth one?
Oh, absolutely.
They are
Add it, Molly, because you can go down the list.
they are actively traumatized in the jail, and that trauma is passed to their children, their community, their families. And so we're really talking about also intergenerational attacks on the poor and the Black communities in Cleveland.
So so just to get back onto some of those asks that, or demands, because I don't want to say ask because it sounds like we're begging. And some folks don't like the term demand because it sounds like but the thing is that we're your bosses. So a boss can't make a demand.
Taxpayers you pay tax.
You're doggone right. So what we're asking for are services be put within each courtroom that makes a provision, like what I was saying earlier. So now, if you help
like a courtroom liaison,
like a courtroom counselor or a courtroom social worker,
okay.
that is going to
An
be
advocate.
able to assess the needs of some of these folks that are coming in.
Yes.
So now, like I said earlier, you've got that person that received an assault charge, but it stemmed from a trespassing violation or a perceived trespassing violation because they don't look a certain part and they don't want them downtown in the flats because they look a certain way. So now this person is now sitting in jail. So now when they go to the court, we should have a courtroom social worker that actually is able to assess, well, hey, you're homeless, let's get you some housing. And that's the start of it. But we can also find out in the course of that they were, because they're homeless, they can't get that card that provides them Medicare, Medicaid, services that can allow them to get their VA benefits or their various medical or mental health benefits that could also be a part of why they're having these, interactions with law enforcement and with the community. So, it's about treating the causes and not just the symptoms. But to take it a little bit further, it's employment. You find out if a person's employed. Well, they should do their utmost to get them out so they can maintain their employment and still take care of their families, not lose their housing and so forth. And this is what we have to understand.
Talking about the courtroom social worker?
Exactly. And this is what you got to understand is really, really important, is that most of the people, over 95% of the people who actually get out on bail, if they just receive courtroom or court reminders, they return to court. They don't jump bail. How many of us have missed court because of a speeding ticket? You know what I mean? So if they receive those notices, they come back. So think about the odds or the likelihood of them not doing time, as we mentioned before, of that
Right.
person who's going in and going back and forth to court as a free person and not a person who's jailed.
Right.
So, those are the things that we want to provide so that folks can, actually have a more equitable encounter
Right.
or interaction with the justice system.
Yeah, so a lot of our fights are long term. I think a lot of the things that we brought up today are deep questions about changing the system. So bear with us. Stay. We all try to stick together and keep our heads up.
Anything in particular coming up? Any type of mass organization?
Sure. Yeah. So we are launching a petition that is primarily for all of us to be on a communication thread online. So a way for you to give us your email, your phone number, and to say yes. These are my demands as well. I support these demands. I want to see these things happen. So right now we're still trying to build, because the biggest thing about our system is that it doesn't listen to a small number of people. There's more of us than there is of the people who can make decisions, but we actually have to build that number so that they listen to us. So please like us on Facebook. Please join our mailing list, and then we're going to get this change.org petition out online, and then also have physical copies distributed around the city. Does anybody else want to speak to this question of repeat the demands? Because I feel like, we got to wrap it up here.
One of the things that I know that we're concentrating on in some regard is that the judges are setting bail, but it's not based on fiscal position. It's like you might be poorer than me, but that doesn't mean you're going to get a lower bond. And so that's part of the problem. That's one of the reasons why we're in the numbers we're in jail, is because your financial position is not a consideration. The judge doesn't even care what your situation is. He just looks at you and says, yeah, you're black, you get a higher bail. That's kind of how it works. And what we also have to understand is that we're already focused on in terms of being incarcerated, because the arrest metric in the United States is 16 to 24-year-old black males. That's the arrest metric.
Wow.
And this isn't something we're guessing at. There was a guy by the name of Michael A. Wood Jr., who was a former sergeant for the Baltimore Police Department. He said this on a show live.
Wow.
That's the arrest metric. They don't even look for white people. Matter of fact, to go one better, when these white cops get promoted to white neighborhoods where there's less crime, they go back to the black communities to get their arrest quota. Because you can't arrest a judge's son for breaking in a garage and smoking dope. You can't do it.
Oh, well, we appreciate it. If somebody wanted to patronize your coalition and support it, is there a particular place where they can go and find you?
So if you wanted to donate, you can find us. Let me just double check. Surge, showing up for racial justice, Northeast Ohio. You can donate to that organization, and that will go to the coalition. Give
it up for the coalition right here. Play it T, that's me, Hollywood in the Hood. We'll be back with the two.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.